In a sealed-off town in Japan, there is a classroom where the children's school bags are still hanging on the wall. Small, neat, waiting. The kids who hung them there were told they would be back in a few days. That was more than 10 years ago. We know how that sounds. But these rooms are real, and Japan is making more of them every single year because the country is quietly running out of children. Some were taken by the sea in one afternoon. Some were simply never born. And we are going to take you inside the worst of them. A schoolyard where 74 children waited for the grown-ups to make up their minds, with a safe hill 60 seconds away. An island shaped like a battleship, where the last kids spelled out goodbye and never came back. A clock still frozen at the second the water hit. By the end, you will understand why the people who grew up in these towns will not go back through the gate, and why some of them are no longer allowed to. Number 9. Off the coast of Nagasaki, there is an island that looks like a warship. Grey concrete seawalls, blank towers, a shape so much like a battleship that people just call it Gunkanjima. For most of a century, it was the most crowded place on the planet. Thousands of coal miners and their families packed onto a rock you could walk across in minutes. And at the center of it stood a school. 7 stories of concrete, an elementary and a middle school stacked on top of each other, because there was no room to build outward, only up. Then in 1974, the coal ran out. The company pulled the plug, and the whole island was emptied in a matter of weeks. On the last day, the children gathered in the playground and arranged their bodies to spell 3 words: sayonara, hashima, goodbye. The boats took everyone away, and nobody ever lived there again. Today the school is a rotting concrete shell, floors slowly pancaking down onto each other, open to the sea wind. You are not allowed inside. Tour boats circle the island, but the buildings are sealed off because they are collapsing and because of something the cheerful tours tend to skip. During the war, men were brought here as forced labor from Korea and China, and many of them never left it alive. The island was always good at keeping people, even the ones desperate to go home. Before we go on, hit that subscribe button, because by the end of this list, you will never look at an empty school the same way again. Number 8. Ask any Japanese kid about their school, and sooner or later you will meet her. Hanako-san, the little girl who lives in the 3rd stall of the girls' bathroom, on the 3rd floor. You knock 3 times. You ask, "Are you there, Hanako-san?" And a small voice answers, "Yes." Every school in Japan has its own set of these. They even have a name for them. 7 mysteries. The anatomy model that moves when the lights go off. The portrait of the composer whose eyes follow you down the hall. The piano that plays itself in an empty music room. And Hanako has been haunting school toilets since at least the 1950s, long before the internet, whispered from one child to the next. Now, where does a story like that come from? Nobody can prove a single word of it, and we are telling it to you as exactly that, a story. But the versions children pass around are dark. That she was killed during a wartime air raid, hiding in the bathroom. That a stranger got into the school. That she was bullied until one day she simply did not come back. And this is the uncomfortable part. Japan now has thousands of truly empty schools. Real ones. And every one of them, the moment the last child walks out, begins to grow its own Hanako. Because an empty school does not feel empty. It feels like it is waiting for the bell. Number 7. Some schools are abandoned because the children left. This one was abandoned because everybody left. All at once, on purpose. Hachijo-kojima is a small volcanic island in the Pacific, about 180 miles south of Tokyo. People lived there for centuries. At its peak, it held just over 500 people, but it was a hard place. No reliable electricity, no safe way to the mainland when the sea turned rough. And slowly, family by family, They gave up. By the mid-1950s, the population had collapsed to around 50, and in 1965, the people who were left did something almost unheard of. They held a vote, and they voted to abandon their own island. In 1969, the last of them sailed away, and Hachijo-kojima became the first inhabited island in Japan to be completely, deliberately emptied. The school went silent with everything else. The desks, the chalkboards, the small shoes by the door, all of it just left to the salt and the vines. A haikyo, the Japanese word for a place people walked away from and never reclaimed. Think about the meeting that ends a place forever. A room full of your neighbors, raising their hands, agreeing that the island where your grandparents are buried is finished. The school on Hachijo-kojima is not haunted by ghosts. It is haunted by a decision. Number 6. Now we go somewhere you truly cannot enter, not because a door is locked, but because the air itself can hurt you. In March 2011, when the reactors at Fukushima Daiichi failed, the towns around the plant were evacuated in a panic. Nami was one of them. And in Nami, there are schools that were simply abandoned in the middle of a school day. If you saw our video on Japan's abandoned hospitals, you already know this dead zone. These schools are a few streets over. Walk into one of these classrooms years later, and time has not moved. The little leather book bags, the ones every Japanese child carries on their back, are still sitting in the cubbies, in neat rows, exactly where their owners left them. Because these children had practiced evacuation drills. They knew the routine. They believed, like all the adults believed, that they would be back in a few days to collect their things. They were not. On one blackboard, someone returned once and wrote a message to the empty room. A goodbye, a promise to remember. And then, they left again. And the radiation kept the room exactly as it was, a perfect photograph of an ordinary afternoon that simply never ended. No vandals, no looters, nothing touched, just the bags, waiting on their hooks, slowly getting older than the children who hung them there. Number 5. Down on the coast, in that same town of Namie, sits a school called Ukado. It was 300 meters from the sea. So when the ground stopped shaking on the 11th of March, 2011, the teachers did not wait. They did not gather the children in the yard to talk it over. They got them up, and they ran. Up the road, toward a hill called Ohirayama, about a mile away. Every child, every teacher, running. About 40 minutes later, the wave came over the school and tore the ground floor apart, and every single student and staff member was already up the hill, watching it happen. Not one of them died. The locals call it the Miracle School. Ukado still stands today, gutted and silent, sealed inside the nuclear exclusion zone, so you cannot reach it. But its clock survived, and the hands are stopped at 3:40 in the afternoon, the moment the water hit and the power died. A clock that stopped in a school where, against everything, the children did not. Remember Ukado, because the wave that missed these children did not miss everyone. And the difference between the school that emptied in time and the schools that did not came down to minutes. We are getting close to number 1 now, and number 1 is the reason this video was hard to make. Number 4. To understand the last few schools on this list, you have to understand the coast they were built on. The Sanriku Coast, in the northeast, is one of the most beautiful and most murderous shorelines on Earth. Its shape funnels tsunamis straight onto the towns. It has done it for as long as people have lived there. In 1896, a wave came out of the dark and killed around 27,000 people along this coast in a single night. In 1933, it happened again. Thousands more. The people here learned the lesson in blood, and they crushed it down into one word. Tendenko. It is a local dialect, and it means, more or less, each person, alone. When the water comes, you do not wait for your family. You do not go back for anyone. You run, uphill, as fast as your legs will go, and you trust that everyone else is running too. It sounds heartless. It is the exact opposite. It is a town agreeing, in advance, that the children must not die trying to save each other. For more than a century, The schools on this coast drilled it. Run. Do not wait. Do not gather. And on the 11th of March, 2011, that lesson met the hardest test it would ever face. In some towns, the children remembered it perfectly. In one town, the adults forgot. Number 3. Not every school dies in a disaster. Most of them die quietly. In the mountains of Fukushima, in a village called 10A, there was a junior high school that had stood for 76 years. In the spring of 2023, it held its final graduation ceremony, and the entire graduating class, the last students this school would ever have, was 2 children. 2. They walked through hallways built for hundreds, their footsteps echoing off the walls, and then they left, and the doors closed for good. This is not rare. In Japan, about 450 schools shut down every single year, for one simple reason: there are not enough children being born to fill them. If you saw our hospital's video, you met a delivery room standing empty in a town that ran out of babies. This is the next room in that same story. First, the maternity clinic goes dark. Then, a few years later, the elementary school. Then the junior high. A town does not vanish all at once. It vanishes by age group, and the abandoned school is the proof. You can stand in a classroom built for 40 children in total silence and slowly understand that the 40 were never born. There is no ghost in a room like that. The horror is just a number, falling, year after year, and a whole country going quiet from the bottom up. Number 2. Back to the coast, and back to that same afternoon, the 11th of March, 2011. In the city of Kamaishi, there were almost 3,000 schoolchildren. The wave that hit Kamaishi was enormous. It flattened the town. And when it was over, and the survivors counted the children, the number was almost impossible to believe. Of the nearly 3,000 students who were in school that day, the ones who followed the drill, every single one survived. The only schoolchildren Kamaishi lost were a handful who had stayed home sick or been signed out early by parents who thought they were keeping them safe. The students did exactly what 100 years of dead ancestors had taught them. The second the shaking stopped, they ran. And this is the image that stays with you. The older kids, the middle schoolers, did not run alone. They grabbed the little ones from the elementary school beside them, took them by the hand, and pulled them up the hill, the big children half carrying the small ones, an entire generation running for its life and refusing to let go of each other. They called it the miracle of Kamaishi. But the people who study it are very firm on one point. It was not a miracle. It was preparation, which is the cruelest possible way to walk you into number 1. Because everything Kamaishi did right, one other school on that very same afternoon did wrong. Before we get to number 1, do me one quick favor and tap that like button. I'm just getting this channel off the ground, and on a video this heavy, it honestly means a lot. Thank you. Number 1. Okawa Elementary School sat beside a wide, calm river, about 3 miles back from the sea, far enough inland that it felt safe. On the 11th of March, 2011, after the earthquake, there were 108 children at the school and 13 teachers. And then the most ordinary, most human thing in the world happened. They waited. The shaking had stopped. The tsunami warning was sounding, but the river looked quiet. Some of the children wanted to climb the hill directly behind the school. A few even started, but the adults were not certain. And being uncertain, they did the safe-seeming thing. They gathered everyone in the schoolyard, and they waited for instructions. For 45 minutes, they waited. And then someone saw it. Not the sea, the river, running backward, climbing over its banks, coming for them. They finally moved toward a slightly higher spot near the bridge, the wrong direction, and the water took them in the open. Of the 108 children, 74 did not come home. Of the 13 teachers, 10 died with them. The hill that would have saved every one of them was a 60-second walk away. Years later, a court did something Japanese courts almost never do. It ruled that the school had failed, that these deaths were not simply fate, not just the sea, but a preventable mistake, and it ordered the city to pay. The ruins of Okawa still stand by that river, left exactly where the water left them, as a memorial. The parents fought to keep them standing, so that no one could ever pretend it did not happen, so that the next school, on the next quiet-looking coast, would not wait. Here is what actually frightens people about an abandoned school, and it has nothing to do with ghosts. It is the size of everything: the little chairs, the little shoes by the door, the bags on the low hooks, a whole building made 2/3 size, for people who were supposed to grow up inside it. Every other ruin is haunted by its past. A school is the one kind of ruin that is haunted by a future that was promised and then did not arrive. A town does not build a school unless it believes in 20 more years of itself. So an empty one is not really a closed building. It is a town that stopped believing. Japan has tens of thousands of them now, and it makes hundreds more every year, quietly, without any ceremony at all. So the next time you walk past a school, and it is loud and full and alive, stop for 1 second and actually listen to it. One day, that exact sound stops. Somebody is always the last child to leave, and somebody is always the last adult to lock the door. What do you think they tell themselves on the way out about what the silence behind them means? If this one got to you, let us know in the comments. We read every one, and tell us where you want us to take you next. We will see you there.